And you don't have to meditate or anything, but just try to let go of everything that's out there. And my teacher used to say, she had a big sign up there, and it's like, you know, come in as an empty cup, which I really like, because then you just, you know, you have all these ideas about things or whatever, and you just need to let go of what's happened today, which I'm sure we can talk about later. But try to be here, okay? So, take a deep breath, fill your little butt on that couch or your seat, and just try to get into the room. Okay, great. Okay, so I'll just turn this around and show you. We have all this to cover tonight. So I'm going to try and talk quickly and get through it as much as, or everything really, and move it along. And then, you know, we do end at 7:30. But of course you can always stay later and we can have discussions about things if there's an individual incident or something that you want to discuss, or, you know, but I want you to engage and you know, participate right now, but I'm just letting you know that we have a lot of things to cover, and so I'm really, really excited. Okay, so does anybody have something they want to share about the materials that you saw like this last week? Or I gave you at the end of the class noticing the orientations when they're triggered. Yeah, so does anybody have something they want to say about that? Okay, we're going to move on then. Okay, that was quick.
I did see one person, but I knew immediately she was, because changes are happening, and she was like, well, where did this all come from? And I immediately said, she wants to understand. Where did this all come from? Where did this whole conversation start from? And I'm like, so that was that was it.
Cool. It's kind of fun though, really, when you, and then the more we get into it, I wish we had a lot more time, but we're going to do the best we can with what we have. And so I'm going to kind of go into, because I want to talk about tracking and acknowledging, and this is kind of, I'm introducing this, right? So tracking is just my way of saying that when another person is talking, you are right there with them. You are, remember, like you are fully listening. You're not thinking about what you're going to say as soon as they stop talking. You know, you're not thinking about what you're going to do when you leave. You're fully present. That's tracking. Okay? And it's really important part of everything that we're learning and the whole thing, you know, communication skills, right? And what you need to do. These are like great. And somebody will know. People pick it up too. They can feel. They can just feel it. Like, you're not really here. You know, what are you thinking about? Do you ever do that? Right? You can tell, right? Or they say something, you go, okay, you're not, like, they say something that doesn't fit in the conversation, and you're like, okay, you're not really in the conversation. And like, no, they're not. They're distracted. But what you can do for them is totally, fully be present for them. As much as possible. It's a learned habit. You'll constantly be learning this for the rest of your life. You're never going to ace it. You're never going to do it 100% of the time. But you maybe do it a little bit % of the time now that you know how important it is. And so then remember, we're going to talk about acknowledging, which is as important. And so there's so many kinds of acknowledgments, okay? And so one of the absolute hardest thing to do is to learn to acknowledge someone before you respond to them with what you want to say about it. So someone tells you a story about, you know, what happened, I'm just gonna, you know, something happened that, you know, she got in a fight with her girlfriend, and they're telling you all this, right? Now hopefully you're fully listening and giving her full attention. And before you say, oh, I had something like that happen to me, or da-da-da-da, before you do that, it's essential that you acknowledge correctly, and I'm going to give you all this and how to acknowledge, that you acknowledge correctly before you start to share what your thoughts are about it. Okay, which is hard to do, especially if someone calls up. I have girlfriends call up and they're in a lot of pain, and you know, I want to respond with what you should do.
Or relate, right?
Or relate, like I could totally relate to that. So a lot of times what I do, quite honestly, is I'll jot down while they're talking. I did this with a girlfriend on the phone. Of course, it was on the phone, so it made it a little easier. And I wrote down just some words to what I want to say to them later, so that I can stay and be present with them in that moment, right? Because the whole time you're thinking, I want to remember to tell her this, so I just write down a word that will trigger me to say what I want to tell them. So important, and it works really well. Because you get all balled up, and you don't want to forget that.
If you're face to face, then you can't really do that.
Well, I still do it. If I'm sitting with you and we're at coffee, I'll definitely, I usually have a pen and paper. I don't know if you notice me, but wherever I'm at, I usually have a pen and paper, and I usually, and you can write it on the napkin or whatever. You're just writing a word down so that you can take your attention off of that and be right there.
And I think it's okay even to say to the person, I just wanted to remind myself of what I wanted.
Yeah, if they ask you.
Yeah, what are you writing or whatever.
Yeah, but mostly people are so involved, I have to tell you, in the story they're telling you, they're probably not even aware too much of what you're doing. But if they ask, like, well, what are you doing? And just say, yeah, well, there's just, a thought came on mine, and I just want to, you don't have to get into the whole thing, but just a thought came to my mind, so I just want to make sure to remember to tell you. It's no voodoo or anything.
That shows you care as well.
I think so, too.
You care.
Right. I mean, this takes really a lot of discipline to do. So, just try and watch and don't let your thoughts just run rampant, because it's not really.
Now,
not
just
really,
to recap, is this when someone is triggered, or this is just in general?
Anytime,
Okay.
all the time. So it's definitely something that I highly recommend, and people will feel it, and they'll know it, and they'll feel important, and they'll feel special. They'll feel like they'll know it. Even if they don't know it consciously, they will know it. And really, I'm going to tell you, when somebody really does that for you, you'll start having more affinity for them. You know what I mean? You'll just start feeling like closer to them, and you'll want to be around them, right? Because somebody's listening to you. Do you have somebody in your life that listens? Like, it's amazing. I told you, it's the greatest gift you can ever give anyone, right? Remember that? So I'm going to go ahead and hand these out, which I wrote up for you. 3 different forms here. And this is we're just going to go over, like, what's a simple acknowledgement, okay? And when you use the simple acknowledgement. And then there's times where you actually need a special acknowledgement. That a simple acknowledgement of or okay doesn't quite fit the situation, and the person's like, I just told you my deepest secret, and you said, That requires a special acknowledgement, okay? And then we'll go over some acknowledgement errors, some things not to do, okay? So do you want to take one of each and pass them down? Let me have one of each.
Oh.
I forgot I made one for myself. That's right.
Stand.
Yeah. And so,
Pass it over to me.
okay. And so, so obviously, like, a simple acknowledgement is like, somebody says something, and you say, like, okay, or thank you.
Marisa?
Yes.
And, and we'll go through these. Let's just go through them together real quick, because I think it's really important.
Where's yours? Right here. Oh, there's a handout related to okay.
I know, is this great? I know, I was going to go over everything with you, but I want you to leave here with a bag of tools.
Thank you.
I want you to have, every possible thing that will help you out there in the world. And that's what this course is all about. So, let's see, Pamela needs to get
Oh
hers.
my god, I made
thank
all
you.
the wrong ones with my husband.
Oh my god, look at that! Look at her already. Okay, so is that good? No, you might. I have an extra simple acknogement. Does everyone have 3?
I have 2. I've got the
They haven't
special.
come yet. They haven't come
We're
yet.
getting Oh, sorry.
I'm totally.
I got mine handed to me, so I figured everybody else had theirs. Look at Tammy, you can't take her eyes off the paper. It's like
Oh, there's only
Wait, which one's me? I have a extra.
a simple acknowledgement.
There we go. Okay, Pamela.
Thank you.
All right, so now we all have it. So let's just kind of go through this, okay?
Okay.
And let's just go with,
Bummer.
Uh-oh,
That
uh-oh.
sucks.
Oh my gosh, we're all into it, so. Okay, so we're gonna go over, like I said, it's a simple acknowledgement. It doesn't require anything special. You're at work, your husband, your wife, it doesn't matter, it's just like, you need to acknowledge everything. Even a bad acknowledgement is better than no acknowledgement. I'm gonna say that over and over again because that's how important that is. Just like, don't you ever do that when someone's like, you say something to someone and they don't acknowledge you and they just kind of keep going on and you're left hanging there. And I'm like, did you understand? Yeah. Well, why did you say something? Because I don't know that you heard me, or, right? Do you have that?
Yes.
So it could be something simple, even interesting, or, I see it, or I get it. It's just simple. Just give them something, even if it's, oh, how awful, or, oh, that's wonderful. Just give them an acknowledgement.
So I have a
Yeah.
question. So when you give them acknowledgement, can the tone of the voice make a difference? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can say,
Definitely.
good point, as opposed to good point.
What do you think
Right.
the answer is? I
Absolutely
think
does.
you just answered the question, right?
Yes.
Right? So you want that little exclamation there, like, especially if, remember, you're going to be matching their
Energy.
orientation, right? So, I mean, if they talk in that kind of manner, I guess you could respond with a good point.
That's a good point.
But if they're like coming up with something, they want it to be acknowledged, like, that's a good point. You made a good point. I see that, right?
Right.
So it's so important, it's critical in communication skills, this acknowledgement. And that's why I wasn't even gonna do this, but I felt it's so important I couldn't do this class without acknowledgements. You just can't. It's that important. Okay, so then we'll look at, let's look at special acknowledgements. Let's kind of go through these, okay? So these are like, if somebody's in grief, right? So your acknowledgement would probably be more of something like compassion, right? Or have some empathy for them, not in a condescending way or belittling them, but like you want to, they need compassion right then. They're in grief, right? That's what they need at that time. So that's what you want to give them. Or fear. Somebody tells you something, even though you may feel completely different on the subject, like, I think it's ridiculous that you're, got that going on. Like, why would you be afraid of that? Because I'm not
Right.
afraid of that. Right? But you want to say that it's understandable. And anybody could feel that way, right? You're in fear right now, and I can understand why you would be in fear. You don't have a job. And, there's very little money in the bank, and so that would be a good response. Or anger. This is really big, and we'll talk a little bit about it, because cause-oriented people are usually the ones that get angry, right? Okay, so when a cause-oriented person, you want to let them know, like, say they get really angry and they kind of reenact what they're telling you. And they're living it, like usually how I talk, right? I'm gonna tell you the story the way it happened, and then I'm like, and I usually probably use some foul language, and I'm just really angry. Well, what you want to make sure you do is let the other person know that when they're flowing this anger toward, they're just flowing it. It's not even about you. It's not even directed to you. Let them know it's okay. I can handle it. Because they're going to then worry, like, oh God, I just went off, and now you're going to be messed up, or, and just let them know, I'm okay. Thank you. All right, good. Thank you. And then, of course, with hopelessness, what do you want to do? You want to,
Reassurance.
right? They need reassurance, right? They're feeling hopeless. They want you to reassure them that everything's going to be okay. And so, again, these are more than, like, the simple acknowledgments is like a word or two, but this goes in, you want to kind of stretch that out a little bit and be a little bit more conversational with them, And humor, of course. If somebody tells a great joke, nothing's worse than nobody laughs at it, right? It's horrible, I've been there, right? You know? And then you're just like, oh my gosh. And so let them know that, God, that was funny, or, oh, how cute, or whatever, you know, like, just, you know, let them know that, you know, that their humor was appreciated, and that you got their humor.